Hello and welcome to today's European SharePoint, Office 365 and Azure Community webinar. My name is Orla and I'm delighted to be joined by Claire Edgson from Avanade, who will be taking you on a guided deep dive into Microsoft Centre of Excellence. Remember to join in the conversation about today's webinar on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @EuropeanSP and our hashtag is ESPC22. Don't forget to check out the Resource Centre. This is updated daily with the latest blogs, ebooks, webinars, and how-to videos. Simply visit sharepointeurope.com and click the content link at the top. Continue your learning by joining us for our next webinar on June 29th, Creating Solutions for Microsoft Teams using Microsoft Lists with Gio Ferreira. For full details, check out sharepointeurope.com/register for webinars. ESPC 22 returns live and in person in Copenhagen from the 28th of November to the 1st of December. The ESPC program consists of 4 Microsoft keynotes, 9 tutorials, and 100+ sessions, which will enable you to leverage Microsoft Teams, Microsoft 365, Azure, Power Platform, SharePoint, and more to your greatest ability. View the full program at sharepointeurope.com. Book your team for ESPC 22 now. Special group discount of 15% available for groups of 3+. But hurry, as this special group discount ends on the 30th of June. Save even more if you book now with our early bird sale. After the webinar, we will have a questions and answers session. Type any question you have in the questions window. Questions will be selected and answered at the end of the presentation. This webinar will be recorded and added to the Resource Centre, where you'll be notified by email when it's available. And now I'm going to pass you over to our presenter, Claire. Hello, Claire.
Hello, how are you all doing?
Hi, Claire. You're live now.
Yay. Hello, everyone. How are we doing? So, I'm Claire Edgson. I'm the Global Lead Solution Architect for Power Platform for Avanade, but I haven't always been Power Platform. I come from a SharePoint background, Azure. I have done Dynamics, although most people laugh because I always tease the Dynamics people. And I've got a broad integration and security background. So why am I in Power Platform? Part of why I came to Power Platform is I love the flexibility of the platform. Most people think of it as just being apps, but it is way much more than just apps. So the platform itself is an amazing toolkit we have. Just as I was excited back in the day when SharePoint came out, Power Platform is just as interesting because from Power Platform, we can build applications, we can build automations, we can build bots, we can use AI, we can build portals, and that's just scratching the surface. So it's great to have all this stuff that we can make and build and be really excited by, but I'm an admin, so my admin head goes, okay, how do I control this chaos? So one of the key things that I do at Avanade, along with some of my amazing colleagues, is we talk a lot about governance and strategy and how to manage the platform, because anybody quite literally can build something. But we need to keep an eye on what's going on and understand this whole monster that is being built for us. So one of the biggest questions I get asked is, how can I turn it off? You can't. It exists. Anybody who's got Office 365 have Power Platform. And it comes as part of that install because SharePoint uses Power Apps and Power Automate. So it's there. Every single person in your business can create applications and automations just from their SharePoint licensing. Now we can go to the other end of the scale and we can use our amazing pro developer friends to build all sorts of other clever pro code to come and sit on top of our platform too. So we've got both ends of the scale. We have Fred in accounts building something that he used to build on Excel, all the way to a full developed enterprise-wide solution that's doing 100 things. So how do we see what's happening? Those of you who've been around Power Platform for some time will know we have an admin center. And I'm going to start just for those of you who've never seen here. This is our new-faced admin center that allows us to see environments, analytics, and some other resources. But that doesn't give us a really clean picture. You can dive in and out, you can do your job. But Microsoft realized that this wasn't enough. And a wonderful team we have at Microsoft started to build out the Center of Excellence Starter Kit. Now it's called Starter for a reason, because it's designed to get you going. The whole point of the kit is it gives you 90%, and you continue to build out what you want from it to make your business perfect. So where do we start? What is this thing that was called the Center of Excellence Kit? Now, there are a bunch of solutions that come for Power Platform, but probably the most important thing that we get is the Power BI. So hopefully on my screen, you can see a copy of one of the Power BIs. This isn't the very latest version, but this is a good all-round to show you what's there. And if you can see on my left-hand side, there are lots and lots of tabs, and we're going to dip and dive into some of these. We're demoing today off a small little tenant of mine, so there isn't huge amounts of data in here, but I will talk to you to show you where you look. So when you open your own, or you finally install it on your own tenant, you know what sort of things you're looking for, because it's very easy to be drowned in the amount of information this great kit gives you and understand where to use it. So right to start with, Microsoft has split the dashboards into monitor, govern, and nurture. Now, monitor is us watching the world, govern is obviously us ruling the world, and nurture is us encouraging our makers, both pro devs and citizens, to come along and play. It allows us to see what they're doing. So let's start to look at what some of these Power BI are, and then I'm going to take you into the background, into the actual Center of Excellence kit to show you what it's doing. So if we start with the overview for Power Apps, again, as I said, mine's a very little tenant, and just because I've gone live today with you guys, my Maps has decided it's not working. So this bottom right-hand screen would be utilizing Bing Maps and show me where all my makers are around the world, which is quite cute. Now, if I'm just based in the UK, like I am today, most of my makers might be in the UK. But it's really nice for our global companies to see where they are. And when I'm working with customers, they love the fact that they can see Canada's got more makers than Australia, that's got more makers than Germany. So it already starts that little fun bit of gamification. It's quite a nice report to show. We have lots of our customers that will actually screenshot this particular report and the next one, which is Power Automate, to add into their monthly board reports, because it tells us all sorts of cool things. It will tell us how many environments we've got here at the top, and how many environment makers, how many custom connectors, total number of makers, how many new things have been made this month, how many flow makers, how many new flows have been made this month. It's also showing desktop flows as well, so that's the RPA side, and it will also show us any bot makers. Now my tenant's very little, it doesn't have all the bells and whistles in there, but it's a really nice report to show what's happening. It will show us the top 20 environments, top 20 app makers, and it will show us where they are in the world. Very cute. So things to notice on this page. When we start to look at environments, there is more than one type of environment, as I'm sure you all know. So we have sandbox environments, we have production environments, we have trial and developer environments. Now, depending on the screen we're on, you will see how those numbers line up. We also get something else that comes through in here, and that's the Dataverse for Teams environments. Now, they're a special type of Dataverse, specifically for Teams. We don't control them in quite the same way, but we do get to see them here. So we can filter them in and out of everything we look at. So this is the Power Apps version. And the Power Automate version, just waking itself up, it's almost the same top bar, it's just the bottom half of the screen will change for you. So something else that's worth looking at on here, you'll see total custom connectors. Now this particular one, when we come to the custom connector page itself, you won't see too much on mine, but I want you to look at your own, because quite often you'll see quite a large number here. I'm working with 2 customers at the moment. The first time they opened this screen, they panicked because they saw 700 custom connectors. They're like, we've never used one, why is it there? You have to remember that your makers can make custom connectors. Doesn't mean to say they can use them, because if you've been good and you've set your data loss prevention correctly, you will decide which custom connectors, if any, people can actually add into their apps and flows. But it doesn't stop people making them. So this number can sometimes be unproportionately big compared to what's actually in use. So if the first time you look at your screens and you see 400, and you, oh, what is this thing? Please don't worry. When we come back to the actual custom screen, you will actually see there's probably only 1 or 2 in use, but your makers have been able to make them. Now, why do we care about it on these screens? We care because what we want to see is who's making them. We want to be able to see that a whole bunch of people have been trying to do something, and maybe they've not asked, maybe they don't know how to ask. So you can start to use these reports to say, okay, well, there's 2 teams over there constantly trying to connect to SAP. They've not asked us, but they're obviously trying. So maybe we need to ask. Maybe we're already busy and we don't want to, but this is allowing you to see what your humans are doing. So it's a very similar overview for chatbots. So again, it would show me the top chatbots. So let's go and look at environments, because this is probably the next most important one to look at. This shows us the total number of environments we have. It will show us in Teams environments. Now, as I said, mine's a very tiny one. I've only got 1 Teams environment. Most of the customers I work with have anything up to 20,000 Teams environments, which makes this big. So a Teams environment is this Dataverse for Teams that's able to be spun up for every single Teams site you have, up to typically about 10,000 environments, but Microsoft do let us stretch it. That's a lot of admin. And again, don't run away screaming from it. Dataverse for Teams is very simple. So just because there are thousands of them, don't panic. It's not going to stop everything else you're trying to do. But we can see the number of makers, the types of environments. You can see on my screen, we've got sort of a bright greeny color and a dark blue. So the greeny color in my case is a sandbox. We've obviously got a default. You all get a default environment, whether you like it or not. You get one from Microsoft, and you will have different types of environments in your world. You may have developer environments, which are typically for 1 person to explore with. You might have a trial because you've decided to do a hackathon for your company. You may have built out other types of environments, but these are the core ones that will appear in here. And what you will see on the right-hand side is the numbers of apps and flows in each. Now, for a lot of the customers I work with, we're looking at up to 1,000 real environments. So my customers tend to be huge. But most customers that we see day to day, when they start, they may only have 10 or 20 environments, plus a bunch of Teams ones, but let's focus on the pure Dataverse ones for now. So this is quite nice. This will show you how many apps and flows, and if you have PBAs in there, it will show you the bots too. It will allow you to filter. So what you have here at this level is I can pick on specifics. So default is my default. Your default may be called something else. You may, if you don't know what your default's called, it typically has upgrade in brackets because you probably had it long enough. It's been upgraded from when we used to call this CDS. And it will be normally named as something that's similar to the tenant name if you were just starting. It's worth, as you grow with your team, to change that name to something that says personal productivity. because that's what it is. Default should only be used for individuals to solve their own individual problems, because everybody can play in default. Now, the other environments that you have, you will see different things in. You will have a much bigger tenant than I, but you will also see who's been making your environments, which is good to know. Certainly if environments are starting to spring up, imagine you're an admin watching your world from up on top of your ivory tower. If you're seeing people making environments you weren't expecting them to be able to, it will appear here. Now, who should be able to make environments? It typically should just be your Power Platform admins. But don't forget that Dynamics admins can also create environments if you've enabled that role. And also your Office 365 GAs can create environments. Now, normally they wouldn't. If you've got Power Platform people in place, the Office 365 GAs will just run away and leave you to it. But they can. So just keep an eye on who can do what. It's great when you're first starting and creating your own Power Platform team to see who's been making what, because that means they've got the ability to make them. So let's roll on to capacity. This is exactly the same kind of report that we get in the admin center. So why would I use it? Why do I care? It's nice while I'm flicking through the other reports to see that kind of information on how much database capacity I've got left. Yes, I can open the admin center, and yes, I can see the same thing. But while I'm in one place, it's nice to see it all together. So what am I looking for in here? Can you see on my right-hand side, I've got some colored lines. Now, the purple on mine is the database, the blue is the file, and if I had any yellow stripes, that would be log files. And what I'm watching for, having my morning coffee, looking at my admin center, I'm looking for anything that's growing exponentially. Maybe I only made an environment for one of my departments 2 days ago, and it's suddenly gone woof and gone really big. I can keep an eye. This is definitely something I recommend for admins to do, is to have just a glance at this in the morning while they're having their coffee, figuring out what's going on in the world, because this will show you something that's going out of order. So why would I have large files? So files would be your attachments, your notes, if you're using Dataverse. If you're using audit logs in any way, shape, or form, so auditing your fields, auditing an entire table in Dataverse, that would create yellow blocks. Now, we have to remember that all the database collectively across all your environments, not Dataverse for Teams, everything that is standard Dataverse tables, collects to one sum amount. And we're allowed an amount, whether that's 2 gig, 200 gig, 2 terabyte, whatever it is our licenses and bought, it's shared between all the environments. I can't say to one environment, you can only stay at 10 meg or 10 gig. It's shared collectively. So if an audit log particularly, that's the most common error, is spiraling out of control and taking up 5 times the space, it's stopping other people. It's stopping other systems because you're going to run out of space. So it's a great report to look at, keeping an eye on what's going on in here. So has the blue line grown a lot more than you're expecting? Anything with lots of notes and attachments is probably a bad design. It may have been great if it was just 3 or 4 people, but if you get something where there is lots of attachments coming in to the case of thousands, you probably want to consider re-looking at that solution. Maybe SharePoint's a better place to put your data for the documents. Maybe you want to use an Azure Blob Store, your choice. But this screen is telling me when my data is starting to go out of control. So just a quick glance at these numbers will save me pain later. So it's one of my, I call my coffee morning, glance at the world, what's going on. If I had a lot of Teams environments, they would show in here. Now, I may sound dismissive of Dataverse for Teams. I'm not. But when we're trying to admin the whole platform, a lot of the work that goes for the Dataverse for Teams falls under Teams itself. When we're worrying about capacity, Dataverse for Teams has 2 gig per database, and that's it. If somebody wants to use more than 2 gig, they can't extend it, they can't do anything else. They have to come over to real Dataverse to be able to use it. So Microsoft Teams already accounts for that 2 gig per environment. So these don't run out of control. They cannot suddenly go to a terabyte in space. They are 2 gig max, and that's it. They do not take that 2 gig from your bought allowance in your licensing. So if you've got 200 gig altogether in your licensing that allows you that much space, Dataverse for Teams will not touch that total. Why do I want to come and look at Dataverse for Teams here, the Teams environments? It's good to see how many are being made. Typically in businesses, anybody in a team can make a Teams Dataverse for Teams to appear. So you will get lots and lots of makers that create Dataverse for Teams. But what it is useful to see is how often they're being made. And one of the further things we take from this is start to see whether they're actually being used, because lots of people in Dataverse for Teams, well, they're sitting in a team site, press the button. Ooh, what's an app? What does that do? And they never touch it again. So it's something we can maintain and clean up, but it's here. And the very latest, the June report, has a little bit more information, and the later reports we get later this year are going to drill down a bit more into Dataverse for Teams. But just so you know why this is here. Now, if we start to look at the apps, again, remember my tenant is tiny. Yours will have hundreds, if not thousands of things in here. This is showing me all the apps. It will tell me any that have been created this month, which is great. So again, when you're trying to show how well your business is growing, to see the fact that you've got 2,000 apps and 56 were made this month, that's really cool. It will tell you the number of app makers. So again, a lot of clients we work with, they will actually take that top line data you see on this screen, and they will actually keep it as sort of they take the data and put it into a separate table or into an SQL, whatever their choice is, to be able to show the trend analysis to show how well that business is growing. So something that came out in the version I'm showing you shows production apps. Now, there's always a debate about what's production. For most people, you'd say it's in a production environment. Well, that's okay. Different businesses have come from different places. So if you've come from a SharePoint side, the whole concept of having dev, UAT, and production is slightly different to where you've been in SharePoint. You understood testing and a dev environment, but the idea that production environments are something special, it may be new to you. If you come from Dynamics, you understand that side already. But the production apps number here is counting from anything that's in a production environment, and I'll show you what that difference is in a minute. But it also is those that are being used. So we need to keep an eye on what's being used. If your numbers are dropping, nobody's using them. We'll look a little bit more at that in a minute. So something we have in the back of the kit, let's see whether mine's actually got any data in it. It may not have at the moment. No. So if we've got the audit log part of the kit working, there's a part of the tool that's called audit logs. Now, what this audit log module does is it goes and reads from your Microsoft 365 Security and Compliance Center. Before the security people in the room scream, we can't see anything other than what the flow asks for. So the flow goes and asks to see who has opened what and when. We don't get anything else. So we get in the table back from our audit logs the fact that Sam in accounts has opened this app 13 times this month. That's what we see. We can't see what Sam has been doing in it. We can't track Sam's movements other than the fact we can see Sam's opened it. So what we see in that audit log data, if you can get it working, because it's a brilliant piece of technology, what it does is allow us to read back all the time. So we can see in our report how many unique users are really using it. I might have shared it with 2,000 people, but I got one person using it. Maybe it's not the app I thought it was. Similarly, I can have shared it with one AD group, which doesn't sound that big, but I've got 50 people using it 500 times in a week. That app's got value. So what this data will show us is which of our applications are really being used. Because I'm sure you've had the conversations in your own business about what's got value. Now we think of data for data classification. So this is sensitive, this is business, this is finance, it's public, I don't care. But what we struggle often is to work out the value of something. When you can see how many people are using it and how many times a month they're using it, it shows you the pain that would happen if that app disappeared. So you start to classify the value. And for a lot of our businesses we work with, they have a sum which they put into their own Power BI, where we have a nominal FTE. So one of your people, we pick a completely average wage. So for the sake of argument, let's just say an FTE is worth $30,000 a year. It's probably a lot more than that, but let's just stay with that number. So every time somebody is using that solution, that application, you can say, how much time is it saving them? Now, you could interview people and go, cool, this great solution. How much time is it saving you? And they'll say it's saving me a week. But on average, most apps that are working and being used well are saving a minimum of 30 minutes per week. So 30 minutes times that FTE, value of 30 minutes, what's that cost? It might be $3. But if I've got 50,000 people saving $3, that's a lot of money. And as you start to drill more and more into these users, and the amount they're using your apps, and even if you just stick to it only save me half an hour, that's a lot of money being saved. And where we've done studies in this, we've seen up to several $1 million on big customers being saved by just people saving half an hour a week. So start to look at the audit log side. So the column here, it says unique users and it says sessions. If you've got your audit log data working, you will start to see the numbers coming through here. And if you're struggling to get your audit logs to work, you can always reach out and one of us can help you. It does require a little bit of hand holding with your Azure team, and it does require the permission of a custom connector. But it is brilliant because it will show you the real usage, and you can start to run automations to say, nobody's using this thing. Nobody has used this thing in 3 months, 6 months. Let's deprecate it. Let's get rid of it. Save space, save clutter, because what you'll find over 2 or 3 years of doing a platform, just like we did in SharePoint, is people almost get snowblind to the amount of apps that are there. They can't find anything. They'll complain. They don't know where to go. So things that aren't used, we can automate to clean up and out of the way, which is great. Saves time, saves space, saves pain, saves having to bring it back if you ever have a DR solution. So I would thoroughly recommend you considering the audit log part, because all you get out of the box, if I can persuade my mouse to stop clicking everywhere, you will see how many users it's shared with and any AD groups, but that isn't retrospective to what's actually being used. So if you can see the unique number of people and the amount of time they use it, that is great. We've seen customers believe something was super important, super well used, to find 3 people use it once every 6 months. But similarly, something else that was built by the citizen side is used by 50 people thousands of times in a week. It's that creativity. It's the things that are really useful. And this is the one report to really see what's important to your business. What are people living on? What do they rely on? We have the same with the cloud flows. It's almost an identical page, but we don't get the users in the sessions. So that's the problem with the flows, is I can't tell you exactly who's opened it here. I can actually just see how often it's been run. If you ever need that higher level of data, almost every interaction in Power Platform is recorded in the Microsoft Security and Compliance Center in Office 365. Now, they won't give you full access. No Power Platform person is going to ever get full access to that Security and Compliance Center. But there are some nice reports in there that they can actually export. And we do that again regularly for some customers who actually want to see who's edited, who's modified, who's deleted, which is the kind of information security and compliance care about. So if you woke up tomorrow and went, my apps have gone, who's deleted it? Power Platform can't tell you, but security and compliance can. So there are extra data you can collect, but you'd have to negotiate that with your own security and compliance team. But it can add on to what you see. So Power Automate, brilliant tool. We want to see how many cloud flows are running. We might want to see how many desktop flows are running. Desktop flows being our RPAs. We want to see whether they're in a state of being started, which means they're live, they're able to run. Don't know whether I've got anything in mind, so I've got some that are stopped. You might be able to see here at the bottom if the mouse stays still. If I open that one, it gives you a breakdown of what that was in that file. Stick the mouse out the way. So a stopped flow is one that's either never run or one that's got a fault and it's stopped. So you've instantly got an on-off option. There are also a few other things in state we can have in flows. We can have one that's paused. So you may have manually paused one, or it may be in that state where it's stuck. It's still trying and trying and trying, but it's not going anywhere. So again, it's a nice thing to filter on. On the right-hand side, we have some great automation options here. So I can see who the maker might be. I can look for its display name. I can filter directly down to a specific environment. I can look at specific connectors. Now, why do I care about the connectors here is we may have just updated a connector. We may have just changed the SQL account. We may have just added a new connector in for people to use because they all wanted to use DocuSign. And I want to see who's actually using it, or is anybody using it? We can also go down to actions. So whatever actions are in the automation, I can look down to see which actions are being used. Now that's really useful when you're trying to fault find and understand what's being used and why. And obviously we've got the environment type, so I can choose to look at sandbox, teams, or default, or production. So let's carry on down through. So if we look at the makers, again, if my map would behave itself, you would see a nice little map at the bottom right. But the maker starts to show me a little bit about my app makers, my cloud makers, desktop flow makers, and chatbot makers. It's cute. It's not something I look at every day as an admin, but quite often it's nice to show as a report for your managers, and I can filter down by department and job title. Why I want to filter on job title, I don't know, but I can. Certainly by department, because I quite often sit with customers and they go, oh, the finance team are the best Power Platform people in the world. Okay, so why is the shop floor making more things? It's perception. And when you're talking with management and IT management, they can only see what they see. So this report is very good at showing you which departments they come from. And if I had 16, 17 different departments, this purple block that's just sitting here that says blank at the moment would light up with all 18, 19 different departments showing me. Now, the thing I get asked a lot for is, why do I get blank? Why have I got blank here? And why do I get blank on the number of people? So blank for department or blank against a maker's name is because a person has left. Somebody who made something, whether that was the environment or an app or a flow, they've since left or had their license removed. And Power Platform can only read Office 365 to see what it is. So if you've made something today, it will show up as you in your current department as per your Office 365. But as soon as I take your license off you, or you leave the business, you become zero, you become unknown, and the system doesn't know what to do with it. So it comes up with a blank. So you will, in your own versions of this, find blank departments, blank people. The blank departments is sometimes because we've used service accounts, which is perfectly fine, but service accounts aren't in Office 365 typically tied to a business. It could be, but often they're not. So where you see in departments the word blank, it's because the account it's trying to read either doesn't exist anymore or they're not assigned to a department. When you're looking at your makers and you see no maker name, that person has left the business. And that's where we start to get orphans. Well, we'll come on to that in a little bit. There is a report on makers by country, which is okay, but my map isn't working particularly well today. It's not something I as an admin will look at, but it makes a cute report if that's something you want to show your teams. Similarly, makers by city, it's very pretty. It's not a day-to-day thing that most of us will use, but it's nice. It shows people. Desktop flows is very like the ones you've just seen, and because I haven't got any RPA, it will show you the makers and the departments. And the same for virtual agents. If you're using bots, it looks the same kind of report, and they are getting better. Now, the portals one, again, I don't have more than one portal in mine, so it's not going to show me a mass of data. But I often sit with businesses and say, oh, we haven't got any portals. We're not ready for that. You've got two. No, we haven't. You've got two. Now, they might not be live, but this, again, is showing you what's there. You can't argue with facts, because again, different teams, different groups of consultants you may have had in have all been experimenting. Power Platform's been this massive playground for so long. It's a bit like the Wild West. I often get joked that I'm the sheriff in the Wild West trying to get some order, but this report shows all. Now, while I'm still in this part of the reports, I get asked a lot why I can't see everything that is in my tenant. I know that we've got 38 environments. Why can I only see 6? And that's because the admin account you're running the Power Platform Admin Center with, and this particular flow, doesn't have the ability to read all of them. So a lot of our businesses we work with, you have to elevate your privileges to become a full admin. And that's not something a flow can do. So when the flow runs round to pick up all the apps and all the flows and all the bots, it has to run as an account that's a full Power Platform admin. Now that may be really difficult for you to do because your security may not allow a service account to do that. So some of our customers, when they're first learning and playing with this, they actually have to elevate their own account to being a Power Platform admin and run the flows. So you pick up everything. But at any point, you suddenly go, hang on a minute, I know I've got 300 environments and I know I've got at least 700 apps. Why can I only see 20? Something has changed in your permissions as a Power Platform admin. So it's just something to be aware of. When you first run these reports, it's worth opening the Power Platform Admin Center at the same time and going, yep, I've got 50 of those, I've got 50 of these. Because if you ever get a difference, it'll be a permission in what's running that flow. So just be aware that that can also be a problem when you start. So we come to custom connectors. Now, again, mine's a tiny little bubble. I don't have anything sitting here that's connected to a real live app. When we talked at the beginning about the fact you might have 750 custom connectors and you freak, this will show you the fact that I may have 700 custom connectors, and it will show me how many have been made, but the bottom part of the screen here will tell me which apps they're actually used in. And that can only be allowed through your DLP. So that's something else to check. So when you first open it and you go, oh my God, there's too many. Similarly, you might open it, go, oh my God, there's 32 people using custom connectors in default. Help. It's okay. At least you know. It's far better to know what your problem is to deal with it rather than trying to bury your head in the sand and go, I haven't got any custom connectors. So this screen particularly will show you at the bottom half, it will show you which apps are using which custom connectors, and you can filter them beautifully on the right hand side. So I can find out which person, so I can go and thump them. I can find out which app connector if I had them, and I've also got flow connectors. And I can see when they were created and in which environment. So if you didn't intend custom connectors to run wild, you can narrow it down to who, where, when, what, and go and understand why. Custom connectors are brilliant. They have a real place in our platform, but we need to make sure the right people are using them in the right process. Because if I'm allowing you to do a custom connector to a Google Drive somewhere in the middle of nowhere, that's nothing to do with the business, that's dangerous. We actually found a customer where a contractor that working for them had opened up between the consultancy and the customer. And they could, in theory, even though they hadn't, they could in theory have moved anything back and forth because they created this custom connector to effectively FTP data. And it wasn't wrong because they weren't using it, but it's dangerous if you don't have a process to understand what that API is going to be. So custom connectors are brilliant, but treated with care. So app connections. Now, this is something I do have a look at every so often. What this is going to do is tell us what connectors are being used where. And when I first sit with customers and we start to look through where they are in their journey, their maturity, what their understanding is, it's one of my favorite places to start because it gives me an understanding of where that customer's come from and the battles they're fighting. And what I tend to do here is I pop this report because this is telling me how many times a particular connector is being used. Now, this is my personal little one. I've got some logic flows. I do use Dataverse all over the place. I've got admin, I've got some RSS, nothing particularly scary here, but I'm going to open another one for you. This was a real customer who was kind enough to let me keep hold of this particular screen. So they've got the normal things. So they've got SharePoint and they've got Teams and Planner, they've got logic flows. They've got Excel. Now you may go, but there's Excel, you have Excel OneDrive online, and you have Excel for business. Excel online for business, that's the right words. So if I allow you to use the ordinary Excel connector here, that could be my home one, that could be a student, it could be anybody's Excel. It's non-tenant specific. So I don't want my internal business processes to use a non-specific Excel. So that's one that instantly goes, that needs to be looked at. Mail, that lovely little mail connector that's been lurking forever, it doesn't use your Exchange server. It uses HTTPS. So it's great if you want to avoid all the compliance and security in your Exchange server, bad for business. So again, the mail connector is one we try not to use unless there's a very specific thing. So in the default environment particularly, I would not allow the mail connector. So what else am I looking for? They got Google Maps. Yeah, I wasn't overly enthused, but it was okay. They got an Azure SQL data warehouse. Now, bearing in mind, this was all the environment. That was cool, okay. And then we realized it was default. Would I allow the data warehouse connector in default? Probably not, but it showed me it was there. And then we carried on coming down, and we found a whole bunch of other fun things they'd got. So they'd got SharePoint video tokens going on, they got Blob Store, they got Cosmos DB, Azure Table Storage, and that was okay, apart from the fact they were all allowed in default, which wasn't pleasant. So this was just a great way to look at what's being used. And again, I can filter on the right-hand side to see which connector. And if I jump back to the main report, it will also let me do it per environment. But it's a great way to see what's actually in use. So the first time you're trying to do your review, it gives you a clear idea of what's there. So then we've got some of the other things in here. So we've got app risk assessment. And that really just tells you what's liable for being reduced because it's not being used at all. So I don't tend to use that one too much. I've got App Archive, and I've got the ability to do the same with Flow. So App Archive shows me all the things that are ready to be archived, and the numbers are there to show me what level of risk it is. So it's not being used, slightly used, never been used, and it shows you on this little screen that's popped up what the numbers mean. So what other things do I like to see in here? So I'm continuing on with the Power BI for a minute because it tells you so much. So we've got desktop flow errors. If you've got them, I haven't got any data in here. It's quite interesting to see how many errors you're getting in your RPAs. App usage is quite interesting. Now, mine aren't being used because mine's playing up today, and otherwise I'd have a lovely graph in here for you. But what it does show you is how much your individual apps are getting used overall. And if we come slightly further down, we start to see Power Apps adoption. I'm hoping I have something in here. Here we go. So those of you trying to measure how well your business is doing, how much licensing we've got. So where it says premium is going to show you how much of the licensing is being used. Quite good. And then once you get your own setup and working, give it at least a month before you try to look at the adoption and year-on-year growth. But this will actually start to show out over time how well your environments and build of makers are going, and whether apps tend to go up, 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 down, 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 up, down, as interest ebbs and flows. So yours will never be a straight line like mine. Yours will be a nice wavy line. If you start to see the growth dropping, it's because people have forgotten it's there. It's the same with everything we do. We put in Yammer and everyone goes, yay, it's Yammer. And then 9 months later, everyone's forgotten it's there. And then we put in something else and everyone goes, yay. You have to get the noise back. So if you see your adoption starting to drop, it's time to do something that talks about it again. Maybe do some good show and tell, something with your key developers, maybe with the citizen developers. And once people go hear the word Power Apps or Automate again, oh yeah, I haven't done that in 6 months, let's go play. And off it goes again. So you will see it grow. So that's the Power BI. Now I'm going to take you on a little bit of journey of what's inside. So within the, I'm actually going to drop back one more. So this is a standard Center of Excellence kit. We get lots of modules. Everybody, when they first come to it, think it's just a thing. There are lots of different modules for lots of different tasks, but we're going to focus on the core, and I'm going to have a little look at governance and nurture with you in the time we have today. So within the core, catch up with me again. There we go. So the core is the base one. It's the first one we install. If you want, it's the granddaddy of them. So it comes with a bunch of apps and flows, and I'm going to talk about the apps to start with. So what do we have in here? We have a whole bunch of apps, and every month we get new ones come in. Some are more useful than others, but the ones that I think are really worth having a look if you've not played with them before. I'm going to pick on the set app permissions. I preloaded it because it takes a minute or two to open. Now, this is a lovely little app. It's a real gem from Microsoft. As an admin, the biggest pain in the neck we have is the fact somebody leaves and I've got to find all their things and reassign them. Or how often do we get told somebody's leaving? If we had that perfect scenario to say that Fred's leaving in 2 weeks' time, and oh, by the way, Jimmy's going to take it over. Never happens, but if we did, we can do this. So what I can do is I can actually go by owner. And if I pick, I'm going to, whether Robert's got anything at the moment, I think my demo user has some. So let's say my demo user is leaving. I can select every app, no matter which environment they're in, any app they own, and I can do this. So I can look for, got a user called John, which I'm hoping he's going to pick up in a sec. He's going to catch up with me. Let's pick my one, there we go. So I can do this at any time. So if you want to make co-owners of anything, you want to be able to help a team solve their problem because the person who made the thing is not responding, I can give all those apps to one person. I can make them a viewer, an editor, an owner, or I could do it on an app by app basis. So it's super useful. I don't have to go into the environment and find the thing and work out what it was called. I can go, okay, anything that was owned by Fred, I can make Claire an owner of. And off you go. And it will sit and take a minute or two to do its thing, and we'll see those changes we play. So what else does it allow me to do, this clever little app? It lets me sort by environment. So if I come down to the COE kit environment, it will show me all the apps that exist in that environment and who owns them last time they were launched. Quite useful. But it also means I can pick certain things and do the same thing. I could say they need to be co-owned by Fred, and I can add those permissions to them. It's also got a lovely little feature where it shows me anything orphaned, because my tenant decides to play it the day I want to show you it. I haven't got anything orphaned at the moment because I've literally run this demo yesterday and we fixed a few. But anything that's not got an owner anymore, that means the person who owned it has left. You will see them in here. And then you can start to investigate who should now become its owner. Everything needs an owner. But it's a super clever little app, this one. Really used all the time. All the admins I work with love this one. And if I come back to Power Platform, the right one, there's two. There's one for apps and one for flows. Definitely worth looking at if you've never picked it up before, just so you can sort of make sure that it does what you want. There's another great one in here that's a DLP editor, and it does exactly what the DLP policy editor does on the admin center. But what it will let you do, and I'm going to pick a particular environment, I don't think I've got any DLP set in mind. It will let you go through the DLPs and actually test making a change. Maybe you want to move Dataverse from business to non-business. It will show you anything that's going to break, because it lets you test it against the environment that's there. One word of warning on this particular app is to not add new environments and expect this little app to pick it up. If you add a new environment that's got loads of apps and flows in it to a policy and you want to test if you join it to the policy, this poor little app, it cannot possibly read everything in that environment and come back to you like that. So it will lie. It will tell you that there's no problem. Yeah, by all means, block SharePoint. Not that you can. But if I said I want to block Twitter and I was using Twitter in 50 places in this second environment, it won't show it me. It's not quick enough to read all that data and come back to me. So other little things that are worth looking in here if you've not played with them before, the command centers. We have an admin command center and a maker command center. Conscious of time, I'm going to take you through the admin command center. Now I know I have a message bus error in here, so bear with me. What we have is a load of bookmarks. And if I go to create a bookmarks, it's not pretty. Microsoft are doing better with this, but it's great for a single page for you to go to anywhere else you want within the COE kit. But you can add your bookmarks to your own things. When I add a bookmark, I get the ability to choose who's going to see it. Is it going to arrive where the admins can see it? Yes or no? Or do I want to show it in the makers? Now imagine you've got a Kudos app. You want to be able to show to all your makers and show them all the key things you want in one place. I can show things in the makers command center. And that's quite cute. I'm able to control that single pane of glass they get. It isn't very pretty though, and it does need full premium licensing. So not every customer wants to use it. But as the admin control center, it's got some other good little features. This will show you any sync flow errors. Now we always get sync errors of some sort on the flows in the COE kit. There's always going to be something, whether it's Microsoft have updated something, your service account has expired. It shows you them all in one place, which is really useful for you to find. You also get any health messages. Now this is the little error I've got. My health messages aren't coming through from M365, but those messages to say SharePoint's feeling sick today, Exchange is unwell, they come in here so you don't have to ask. We also get all the latest announcements from Microsoft. That's, you know, the latest things happening, the latest new things, and they're clearly marked by being Power BI or Power Apps, which is another nice place to find things. Environment variables that we set up when we put our Center of Excellence kit in, trying to find where to put those variables and which flow and automation use them. Don't worry, this thing's got you. It's a great little app that lets you find all those variables and edit and add them. Because when you first install the kit, it's asking you for 11, 12, 13 different variables, and you go, whoa, I just want to install it, leave me alone. This place allows you to put them all in and edit and change as you grow and you learn. So great little place to come to. And on top of that, there's a Center of Excellence page here that helps talk you through setting it up, any limitations, downloading the latest releases, and reporting an issue. Remember, when you have problems with the Center of Excellence kit, you don't go raise a normal Microsoft ticket. You come through the GitHub family and report it to the team there. And then for admins, if you're feeling really nerdy, there's a whole bunch of training here too. So I'm conscious of time. There is so much more we could talk about in here. For those of you who want to see a little bit more in some of the other modules, the governance module is the one that does the cleanup. It starts to look at those use cases that aren't being used and allows it to start to pester your users and say, hi Fred, your thing's not being used. Do you still want it? Yes or no? And it collects those into a particular table, which lets you view them as an app, and then you can choose to archive or delete them. Brilliant. It does take time and love to set it up, but it saves you a world of pain. And I would thoroughly recommend you make sure you have an archive step in there, because the amount of times it just deletes it and someone goes, but I want my thing back. So make sure in your setup that you create archive steps, because somebody will want it back. The other things we have in here that I'll do, and then I promise to shut up and let you ask questions, is the nurture one. So the nurture one, in the core one, we get a welcome email that you can send out to anybody who makes something new and go, hello, welcome to Power Platform. Here's where our information is. Here's our community. What we also have in this one is the ability to start sending out maker assessments. If you've ever met a citizen developer and you go, get your documentation done, they'll just laugh at you. So we get crafty. We create a cute little app, which Microsoft have already made, that you can make the right questions to go, cool, thank you for making your thing. Answer some questions and we'll send you some Smarties. It's not however you want to do it, but it allows you to ask the key information. Who's it for? What's the relevance? You know, who's a stakeholder? Where's the right information to find for us to be able to support this with you? There's also a whole bunch in here about looking at training catalogs and being able to create training. It's not fully finished, I'll be completely honest, but it's pretty good. And there's a template catalog you can use, but it will use Dataverse. So I'm going to shut up and see what questions we've got.
Thanks a million, Claire. Great presentation. There's still time to ask questions. Haven't got any questions as of yet, but if you'd like to ask a question, please go ahead and type it into the question box.
So I'm going to answer a few questions that normally get asked at these. So people ask if the Centre of Excellence kit can show me what my licensing is doing. It can show you which premium connectors are being used, but as yet it's not going to show me this is per app, this is per user, this is pay as you go. There's pieces for that on the way, but it's not thoroughly clear. If anybody's got any questions about setting it up, or they're not sure where certain things should be used, you can always reach out to me on LinkedIn and I can show you some other use cases. I hope you found this useful. There's so much more to this kit than I can talk about in an hour, and I hope it's given you a wide-ranging idea of where to start with your world.
Thanks so much, Claire. We've got a few comments, no other questions, a few comments saying that it's been a great informative presentation, and thanks so much. So I guess we'll leave it there. So thanks for a great presentation. It was wonderful having you. Thanks everybody for joining us today. That's the end of the presentation. Thanks. Have a good day. Goodbye.